Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Very Cold Lasagna Podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Lasagna, and this is episode number 291 of this icy yet spicy podcast for all your filthy casual takes on the world of sports, for you filthy casual sports fans out there like you and me. In this episode, we're here to once again do another weekly roundup, another week in review for the red and gold team that is my team, the San Francisco 49ers, and what has went on in another week that was for the red and gold. And what a wacky week this was for my San Francisco 49ers to go out there almost last Sunday and then to completely turn things around. But we'll talk about it on a very short week on a Thursday night and do what they did. Yeah, so basically, essentially, I basically spoiled it for you. We're getting a 2-for-1 here in this episode of the Very Cold Lasagna Podcast because, well, yeah, we essentially had two games in 1 week for my San Francisco 49ers. So, yeah, a lot to talk about here in this episode on the red and gold week in review or weekly roundup number 4 for my San Francisco 49ers. So, a lot to talk about here in this episode. But before we get started, if you're not subscribed already, if you're not following already, what are you waiting for? What is your filthy casual butt waiting for? If you're watching this on the YouTube side, make sure to smash the subscribe button, smash the like button on this episode, leave a comment down below, type in your filthy casual takes on the two games. Yes, I said two games that we're going to be talking about that happened for the red and gold. And yeah, just tap that notification bell as well. And if you're listening to this on the audio side of things, whether it's on Apple or Spotify, rate and review the show, give me some good vibes or leave some critiques, and follow the show on socials at Very Cold Lasagna on X and Instagram. So let's get into it. There's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of mixed emotions, and there's a lot of good feelings coming out at the end of the week for my San Francisco 49ers. But it didn't exactly start out that way to begin the week. And that all started with the week 4 matchup as the 49ers took on the all-elite Jacksonville Jaguars. And week 4 was supposed to be the feel-good story, the feel-good moment of Brock Purdy returning to the starting lineup after missing 2 weeks with the turf toe. But before we get into Brock Purdy and his week 4 performance and the entire team performance, we have to look at the Jaguars side of things. And you're probably wondering, like, why the hell are you even talking about the Jaguars game so late in the week? Well, I mean, it is a weekly roundup after all. And it's my show, so back off. And it's not me being the mark. I'm just telling you how it is. So anyway, for the Jaguars side. So this was one of the top defenses in the NFL. They're mean, they're green, and they continue to make a difference in this particular game. Nearly last Sunday, when this game took place on a weird kind of grayish afternoon. Literally, it was, for some reason, gray skies here where I live, and then for whatever reason, there was a little bit of gray and then a little bit of sun over there down in Santa Clara. But anyway, that's besides the point. The Jaguars defense, they made a big difference in this game. Dennis Gardick, he began the shenanigans, forcing a fumble on Luke Farrell, who is the third string tight end, because on one point in the game, Jake Tongus, the real backup tight end, he got hurt, and that fumble led to an immediate big touchdown by Travis Etienne on the other side. Not exactly the best way for the 49ers defense that just lost Nick Bosa to start that game. And then the defense that is the Jaguars, they also made up for giving up a big pass from Brock Purdy to Ricky Pearsall on the immediate side. They made up for that with Devin Lloyd nagging an interception on a juggle pass on Christian McCaffrey. That was way too high to catch anyway. So they whenever the Jags mess up on coverage, they make up for it for a big turnover that they made themselves. So, and that was a good thing for the Jaguars. And Devin Lloyd in that game in week 4, he had a really big one. He was pretty much flying all over the field, generating pressure, and he nabbed 2 interceptions in this one. The first one that I previously mentioned on Purdy on that juggle catch, and then he nabbed a direct interception much later in the game, and much later on, he recovered the fumble that the old buddy Eric Armstead forced on Brock Purdy. Meanwhile, you look at the offensive side of things for the Jaguars. Despite them being on a learning curve still with Liam Cohen's offense, they had their best game of the season so far. Even with multiple missed chances to cash into the end zone, which would have made this game a much bigger blowout, Lawrence still made some nice throws to move the offense downfield. Travis Etienne obviously killed the Niners' run defense, or the lack thereof. And of course, the big touchdown that got the Jaguars on the board, like touchdown wise first. So yeah, they had their best game of the year, but obviously they kept the Niners in for it way longer than they should have, because all the good things that were happening for the Jaguars, at least the good things, that all happened in the first half, because Lawrence and company couldn't finish drives in the second half, especially in the end zone. They had to settle for field goals, and they had to punt the ball. So not exactly. There's still some mistakes. There's still some mistakes for this Jaguars offense. And then towards the end of the game, when the Jaguars were trying to put the game away, Lawrence made a questionable slide on their last drive that stopped the clock. He didn't slide inbounds. He actually slid a little too much that he actually slid out of bounds. That stopped the clock. But at least he made up for it with the third down conversion, throwing it to Hunter Long to end the game. So a lot of learning lessons for this Jaguars team. So it wasn't exactly the prettiest of games for the Jaguars in that second half, but they still had their best game when it came to being very productive, moving the sticks, as well as, while still making mistakes, it wasn't back-breaking mistakes in that game. So hopefully they take that learning lessons going into this upcoming game that they're going to have, which I'll talk about in just a bit. Because, prior to this next game we're going to be talking about for the 49ers, we have to rewind it back to why they were coming into that second game that we're going to be talking about with some conviction. Because when you look back at that Jaguars game for my San Francisco 49ers, it obviously points to one thing. Why were there so many errors in this game? Why were they making so many back-breaking errors compared to the all-elite Tony Khan-led Jacksonville Jaguars? They had a decent opening drive. Brock Purdy was back in the lineup, and sure, couldn't capitalize in the end zone, but there were a lot of self-inflicted mistakes by this team that killed potential scoring drives, multiple of them, mind you, and one that could have won them the game, especially at the end. It all started with the fumble by Farrell in the second quarter. That led to a big touchdown. And then you had Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy threw 2 interceptions, which, by the way, the first one never should have happened. You most likely should have just ran the ball, in my opinion, instead of just trying to force that thing into Christian McCaffrey. That led to the interception on Devin Lloyd. But that happened. And then there was the direct pass much later on in the third quarter to Devin Lloyd deep in your own territory that at least you were lucky enough to not get a touchdown, which led to a field goal. But then probably the most egregious error for Brock Purdy in that game was you're down only 5 and you have a chance to go and win this game, but then your old buddy Eric Armstead forces you to fumble the ball, and then guess who? Devin Lloyd seals the game, getting the fumble. So, they lose that game, and Brock Purdy doesn't exactly play well in that one. We'll get to why exactly he didn't play well in that game. Kyle Shanahan didn't exactly coach a good game either, because he burned 2 timeouts in 2 minutes in the second quarter because he didn't know why. He didn't know why he had to burn 2 timeouts. I know why. Because he didn't know he accepted a holding penalty when the Jags were already well deep in their own goal line on that specific drive, when you knew you had to decline that penalty in the first place, you dumb dick. And then he failed a challenge on a catch that Travis Hunter clearly caught. There was not enough evidence that showed that it fell onto the ground on contact. Yeah, he lost 2 timeouts that fast, and that was an issue throughout the week. That was an ongoing issue throughout the week. Kyle Shanahan burning timeouts like he was Ron Rivera in the 2015 Carolina Panthers team. No, it was not exactly Ron Rivera's fault. It was Cam Newton that was just burning those timeouts. And then the kickoff in the special teams, allowing these big gains, especially the punt team allowing Cam Little on that punt return touchdown in the fourth quarter. So special teams, essentially, also one of the big factors. So essentially, those kind of mistakes and so much more is the reason why the 49ers lost that game to the Jacksonville Jaguars in week 4. But another glaring concern was that defense. That defense without Nick Bosa was pretty much non-existent. Like, there's no run defense in the front 4, let alone the front 7. CJ West was not there, and more responsibility was placed on the rookie Mykel Williams, Bryce Huff on the edge, the linebackers D. Winters and Brent Warner, and that was basically it. There's nobody else there, and since there was nobody else there, that they immediately meant that Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne and a bunch of others could pick them apart. Especially the pass defense. The pass defense was suddenly an issue too, because they allowed Trevor Lawrence in an offense that was still on a learning curve to have their best game, even if they managed to get a couple of stops, but not enough to win the game. You know, it's maddening. Maddening that one singular injury damages the entire defense. So, man, conversations need to be had, especially after we talk about this second game that we're going to get into about that defense, especially that front 4. So, aside from Purdy, yeah, he aside from him being dog dookie water, Christian McCaffrey, he wasn't good in that game. Yet Kyle kept going to him when the team was down by 2 scores. He needed to have Brock Purdy throw the ball, despite how dog dookie water Purdy was on that game against the Jags. And yeah, the receivers weren't helping him either, especially Kendrick Bourne. As if all the receivers decided to, let's go have some early Halloween hunting. Specifically, let's go eat some Butterfinger so you don't touch my Butterfinger. So yeah, decided to go eat some Butterfinger, and they decided to not wash their hands, and they kept dropping the ball. So yeah, that happened. So Purdy again threw 2 interceptions, but more glaring was the fact that he was throwing and sailing his passes too high, all of which killed promising drives, like a lot of promising drives that could have led to scores. So what was glaring in this game against the Jags is that Purdy was either rusty or probably the latter that we're going to get into, not fully healthy from the turf toe, because he didn't want to move out of the pocket most of the time, and he was sailing his passes. And turned out that he wasn't fully healthy from the turf toe. It actually got worse. So what did we learn today, kids? Yeah, don't rush your quarterback to go back to the starting lineup. But then again, you go into this situation, one of your other quarterbacks is hurt. Well, it was a lose-lose situation. So when wrapping up this game, because we got another game to talk about, for the Jaguars, probably their best early game in their season. They move up to 3-1. Even though they left plenty of points off the board. Trevor Lawrence, he looked good in keeping the offense sturdy, and the rushing attack remained a strong suit for them. But that side needs to keep working on their flow. The passing attack needs to come together, because Lawrence and his receivers still not on the same page at times, and Travis Hunter, he needs to start coming together on both sides of the ball, and trying to be this hyped up hybrid player that's still trying to find his footing, trying to have that breakout game in the NFL in his first year. Still in this first month, it's still been kind of quiet. Defensively, a much better showing than the offense. Devin Lloyd being the star of the show, but obviously you got to give credit where credit's due to the rest of the front seven for rattling a clearly unhealthy Brock Purdy all day long. So yeah, we'll see how they carry this momentum in another big game next week at home, which is going to be against the Kansas City Chiefs, who were coming off a big blowout win against the Ravens on Monday night. Meanwhile, for my 49ers, prior to their second game of this 1 week, this was a crappy performance. Not much else needs to be said about how everyone did. The defense sucked because there's no pass rush. Sure, you lost one player, but that shouldn't demoralize you. They didn't get a sack all game against the all elite Jaguars, and the secondary could barely stop a learning curve offense until late in the game. Purdy and the offense were sloppy as hell, with drops and turnovers, and I didn't understand I didn't understand the discourse online though. Sure, Brock Purdy was not healthy. I also didn't like the fact that a day or two later that Kyle Shanahan essentially rushed Purdy out there because for reasons. But at the same time, there were a lot of people saying that Mac Jones should have played this game to give Purdy one more game to fully heal. But people don't remember that Mac Jones is hurt too, with the knee injury, and then what would end up happening later in the second game. Yeah, so Mac Jones essentially was not exactly 100% either too. So again, they were in a lose-lose situation. You either tried out injured Brock Purdy or Mac Jones, or you roll with the practice squad guy, the random guy in Adrian Hernandez, whatever his name is, the random guy, and get your ass beat completely. You pick one, okay? You go pick one. So, yeah, it was a lose-lose situation for the 49ers in week 4. I guess the positive was it was not a division game, which, ironically enough, was the next game in LA. So, the 49ers on a Thursday night had to rub off the stink, rub off the smell. Like, ugh, we really played that lousy of a game on Sunday at home, and wearing the whites that were clearly dreaded with dog dookie water. Yeah, they had to get rid of that dog dookie water of a performance, but they had to do it really quick because they had to go pay $15.99 a month. Yes, even they had to pay $15.99 a month, pal, to go into SoFi, go into Levi South to take on their division rival LA Rams with first place on the line. Both teams 3-1. The LA Rams, prior to that game, they were in a tight one against the Indianapolis Colts, who were 3-0 prior to the game. But in the end, the Rams managed to force 3 turnovers on Danny Pennies, including the game stealer after Tutu Atwell's long touchdown reception, beating them 27-20. So, yeah, the Niners were major underdogs in this one. And why were they major underdogs? Well, let's look at the injury reports. Let's look at the injury report for the 49ers, because in contrast to the Rams, where they didn't have any notable injuries, like none whatsoever. Brock Purdy was ruled out of this game with the turf toe, complaining about soreness on Monday, and eventually ruled out to play on Wednesday. Yeah. Supposedly we all thought that Purdy was going to be was ruled out because, well, they wanted him to rest up for the Tampa game. But no. The likes of Ian Rappaport, the likes of Adam Schefter, mainly Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network, he was saying that, yes, turf toe got worse than originally thought. and it's going to worsen throughout the rest of the season. Kyle Shanahan even mentioned that in the post-game presser. And like, really? You rushed him out there? You rushed his ass out there? And for what? To lose to the all-elite Jaguars. To get his ass beat by Tony Khan's Jaguars. And he didn't look good out there. He didn't look good out there. His unhealthy butt. Now it could basically cost him multiple weeks, if not a month, or maybe more. Like, you nearly Joe Burrowed his ass. Anyway, they didn't have Ricky Pearsall either with the knee injury. He tried giving it a go after having to leave the Jags game with that injury, but he eventually sat out the rest of the game, and he was eventually ruled out. And then Jawan Jennings also didn't play in this game with the various injuries he is dealing with. Robert Beal Jr., the backup edge rusher, with an ankle issue. He also didn't play. CJ West didn't play because he was recovering from thumb surgery. But we kind of did at least get some positive news. Renardo Green returned when was active with the neck injury. So we got some help in the secondary. But more importantly was someone that was off the injury report completely, and that was Mac Jones. Mac Jones, having dealt with the knee injury that bothered him in week 3, kept him as a backup in week 4, fully off the injury report for this game against the Rams. And it proved to be vital in this game. So when you look at the players to watch in this game, obviously, just as I mentioned seconds ago, Mac Jones. Purdy, it seemed like he was going to have to bounce back in this game on short order with a much cleaner game in LA, coming off that turnover fest. But then, somehow, some way, it becomes the Mac Jones show again. And then, looking at other players to watch, that front four, or the lack thereof. They couldn't have another game with no pressures, no sacks, and no turnovers. As if they couldn't get any on Trevor Lawrence and the Jags, it was going to be a little bit of an ask against Matthew Stafford and the Rams offensive line. Meanwhile, for the Rams, some of the players to watch included that front four, because in contrast to the 49ers pass rush, which was severely lacking, the Rams' young front four of Jared Verse, Byron Young, Kobe Turner, and Braden Fisk, they continued to excel, and they were set on continuing that stretch against a beaten up 49ers offensive line. And obviously, you have Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. Nacua specifically has been on a tear in the first month of the season, and he's well on his way to probably becoming an All-Pro again this season. So when you look at the keys to victory, starting with the 49ers undermanned team as a whole, going into that game on Thursday, they had to generate any kind of pressure on Matthew Stafford, like any kind of pressure, because, again, as I mentioned, they couldn't lead this game not pressuring Matthew Stafford, not sacking Matthew pressure at all. They had to find somebody that could get to Matthew Stafford and hopefully come away with this game, potentially find that guy that could, well, not exactly replace Nick Bosa, but be a fill-in that they couldn't get from the Jaguars game. And in contrast to Trevor Lawrence, Matthew Stafford is an older quarterback. He's not, I wouldn't say mobile, but he's not as mobile. He's kind of like a pure pocket quarterback. But his offensive line and his receiving core is 10 times much better than what the Niners currently are and what the Jaguars are 2 times are. Meanwhile, for Mac Jones, they had to beat the Rams in the air. The Rams' run defense wasn't great against the Colts, but they'll still surely attack CMC because the Niners' offense, it was that predictable. Even at 60%, Jones had to get the ball out quick and hopefully in big chunks because, that pass rush, at least going into Thursday, was really tough. But that secondary, on the other hand, had some question marks. Meanwhile, for the LA Rams, you had to force Mac Jones into turnovers. For the Rams front, They needed to generate consistent pressure on them, especially given Jones's limitations, especially with that bum knee. And given the fact that the 49ers offensive line being as bad as it is right now, this was a big opportunity for them to have a sack fest and a turnover fest on Jones. And then you continue to ride the hot passing attack on offense. So not much else needs to be said there. Why fix what's not broken with feeding Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, as well as Tutu Atwell? So with all that being said, with all the keys to victory, the injury report, the players to watch, we get to the actual game. We get to this actual second game between my Niners as they went out south to Levi South to take on the LA Rams in a must-win game for, I'd say, both teams. Both teams need to win this game for the division lead, the early division lead on the line. That was pretty crucial for both of them, especially for an undermanned Niners team. And I gotta say, surprisingly, in this game, the offense started out well. The game plan was mainly centered around Christian McCaffrey and Mac Jones. Mac Jones specifically had to get rid of the ball quick because that, like I said, the Rams front four was very fast, very furious, often pressured Mac Jones, but they managed to get a touchdown on their opening drive. And Jones got it to Jake Tongas. Jake Tongas had a big game in this, by the way, and they continued to ride that wave. And along that wave, saw some surprises. One of those surprises was aggressive Kyle Shanahan coaching, at least in the first half. But anyway, that was something I didn't expect. Aggressive Kyle Shanahan coaching in the form of going for it on fourth downs, even though it was like fourth and short situations, but it was like not even close to midfield. They were going for it on fourth and short, and they successfully did it. Not even past midfield. And yeah, they did it successfully twice on their second drive, and they got another touchdown. They were up 14-0. And by the end of the first half, they were up 17-7. It wasn't necessarily a big lead, but for as beat up as they were outperforming the Rams. And we'll talk about like how the Rams were when we get to their side of the game. But things started turning a little bit for the worse for the team because in the third quarter they started to slow down, and Mac Jones got hurt again, and yeah, things were starting to look pretty alarming, and we thought it was going to be Adrian Martinez time in LA, and that was going to be alarming, and Mac Jones took a big hit from Jared Verse when the Niners were at the goal line, and it seemed like Mac Jones was going to be done for tonight. And we're like, well, shit. We were looking to go to Adrian Martinez, this unknown, this United Football League MVP that NFL fans don't know. We don't know how good he is. Again, he only played against a bunch of scrubs in the spring league, so we didn't know what he was gonna do in the big leagues. But Mac Jones, surprisingly, jogged off the field. That's what Al Michaels said. His words, not mine. But yeah, he jogged off the field. And he managed to come back in the game to finish it from there. Dude's a tough guy. I'll give him that. I'll give him that. But the game was not far from over from there because the defense once again started to crumble after a good showing in the first half because of more injuries on the defensive line. Kalia Davis, Una Gross-Matos specifically, and I don't know what kind of curse God or football man decided to put on the 49ers defense, let alone the 49ers overall specifically. But anyway, more injury mania running wild on the 49ers defense, and the secondary breaking down in coverages and them missing tackles like a slip and slide. Like, what kind of defense was this? Like, Robert Saleh was supposed to help this defense, not like, well, it still helps in like big situations, which we'll get into, by the way, but they're still slipping and sliding. And yeah, because of the injuries, like he had to call more corner blitzes because we were running out of edge rushers. We were running out of defensive tackles. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? And they eventually gave up the 17-7 lead, and not only that, they also gained the Rams back into the game, not because of the Niners necessarily, but ref ball. Ref ball was also getting the Rams back into the game. There were a bunch of missed calls like roughing the passer, but then again, the refs also missed a face mask penalty on the 49ers and a forward progress call that was actually supposed to be a fumble. So the Niners did technically get away with one on a kickoff. But then the bigger picture, the fourth quarter, the momentum shifted towards the Rams big time because of what I just said. Mac Jones' injury, he's basically playing on one leg, essentially. Then even when the 49ers were tied, even when they had a slight lead in the fourth quarter, Kyle Shanahan just started playing conservatively. Like, he stopped being aggressive. Be aggressive, but he can't be aggressive. And then the defensive breakdowns, like, what happened? Like, they just took their pedal off the gas. Like, words. Anyway, but yeah, the only thing that was keeping the Niners like from completely blowing this game was Josh Carty having his own breakdown. He missed a field goal and an extra point. The game was essentially tied for a lot of the fourth quarter, and then the game they nearly blew this game. They nearly like choked this game away when they had several chances to do so. But Alfred Collins, the rookie defensive tackle, he came up with probably the biggest play of the season, and probably so far the season-saving play of the season, forcing Kyren Williams, the running back of the Rams, to fumble the ball at the goal line where the Rams had a prime opportunity to score with 1 minute to go, and Alfred Collins made a big changing fumble to stop the Rams from getting the go-ahead score. Like, this dude, man, like, this guy that Robert Saleh and the Niners drafted, this dude was a huge difference maker. And I'm not sure why they're not exactly using him more or getting him more reps, but this might have earned him more reps, especially in a time where they don't have a lot of people right now on the defensive line. So this might have earned him more playing time. So the things, at least what we saw in the first half, came back to life, at least on offense, and when we went to overtime. So yes, this game did go to overtime. And one name I forgot to mention when I've been talking about all game long, recapping, reviewing it, my highlights, is Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne, the receiver, who was having butterfingers in the previous game I talked about, the Jaguars game. He was like nonstop in this game. He was Mac Jones's go-to reliable guy. Even with one big drop pass on third down at one point, he made up for that with the career best performance, nearly 200 yards, being the leading receiver, especially given the fact that Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings out. Yeah, the Rams literally had no answer to stop him, nor Mac Jones, nor Christian McCaffrey for that part. So, yeah, every time the ball went to CMC, essentially in the receiving game, the run game, they were able to contain him for a bit. But Kendrick Bourne, no answers for that. So the defense continued to get picked apart in the extra period, though. And they were about to lose this game because of the defense. Because they allowed Matthew Stafford and the offense to get down to the red zone quickly, get down to scoring range quickly, and essentially end the game again in favor of the Rams because someone didn't cover Tutu Atwell on the critical catch, and the big lob catch from Stafford to Atwell. Like, what was that? It was like a good 5 feet away from Tutu Atwell to whoever that guy was covering him. Like, what was that? But at least they got the stop when it was mattered most. Because on fourth down, after like both teams called timeout on each other, to like think about like what they were gonna do. I think it was Kyle Shanahan that called timeout, and then it was Sean McVay that called timeout. It's like, okay, let's see who's gonna crack first. And then when neither team could call timeout anymore, it was the Niner defense that finally, for as much shit as they got, both literally and the keyboard warriors that were like me, they came down with a big fourth down stop on Kyren Williams to win this game 26-23. And probably one of the gutsiest and grittiest wins that I've seen for the 49ers under Kyle Shanahan. Like, when praise is earned, I'll give it to them. When criticism is earned, I'll give it to them. But in this game, it's both. It's both, okay? But it's leaning more towards the praising side because they pulled a John Cena in this game. They never backed down. They never quit in this game. I have to give some deserved props for the 49ers and how much they wanted to give this game away. They didn't. They didn't give up in this one. They were severely undermanned in this one, but that didn't stop them, especially given that they quit in that game against the Jaguars. So this is a very nice response in this game against a division rival, and especially in Levi South. Looking at on the Rams side of things, that offense for the Rams, outside of a nice second quarter drive that led to Kyren Williams getting a touchdown, on high stepping his way to the end zone, by the way, that got them their first touchdown. In the first half, the offense was not on the same page because of that defense for the 49ers. They managed to pressure Stafford. They even sacked Matthew Stafford. So for a defense that ended up getting torched later on, in the first half, they managed to shut down Stafford, lock down Nakua, receivers having butterfingers themselves on catchable balls from Matthew Stafford. So essentially, that offense was not having a good first half, but they got it rolling in the second half though to keep themselves alive, tie the game up, and more importantly, Matthew Stafford, Puka Nakua, and Devontae Adams got hot. They came back down from 17-7 and tied this game up. Now, why do I say they didn't take the lead? Well, that's because special teams was an issue. Special teams was a major issue for this team. But they made costly mistakes in this one. One of those, again, going back to the special teams, Josh Carty cost the team 4 points. He missed a field goal on the Rams' first drive in the third quarter, and he also had an extra point blocked. So it goes back to mistakes that the Rams were making on special teams with their kicker for the second time in 3 weeks. The first time was in Philadelphia against the Eagles. So that happened. And then he was doing this dirty kickoff thing that Al Michelson and Kirk Herbstreit were mentioning. That was like trying to get that kick within the landing zone and not go into the end zone. But then that eventually caught up to him. It's like a weird kicking style that he's doing. And this time, when he did it in overtime, in the most critical period, it landed well short of the 20-yard line landing zone. So, that completely backfired, and it gave the 49ers great field position to start in overtime. But fortunately, the defense, they held up and kept the Niners within a field goal. Before I touch on the next mistake, that defensive front four were surprisingly quiet in this game. And they only got 2 sacks in this game, and I thought they would have gotten more despite how much they were heavily pressuring Mac Jones. But that's kind of a somewhat mistake in this game. That front four, overall front 7, they didn't get to Mac Jones all that much because Jones was beating them in the air. Like, even if it's like small chunk passes, like they didn't have many answers for Christian McCaffrey nor Kendrick Bourne in this game. And they also dropped the few near interceptions that were given to them when Jones was under heavy pressure. So the defense didn't have a I don't know if I'd say a solid performance in this one when that front seven is usually good. So going back to the costly mistakes for the Rams that ended them losing this game and ending their comeback attempt to win this game. I'd say the biggest culprit for why the Rams lost this game was Kyren Williams, the running back. When you fumble the ball twice, it's going to end up leading you to lose this game. But the second one where he lost it to Alfred Collins at the goal line, like with a minute to go, you have an opportunity to win this game at the goal line. It was like 20 all at the minute left, and you get it 20. You get it touchdown 26 to 20 in favor of the Rams, but then you don't hold on to the ball. Alfred Collins punches it out and secures it, and then you cost your team 6 more points. So he also got stuff on the final fourth down, which was honestly a kind of a predictable play from Sean McVay, but still, Kyren Williams did not have a good game, even though he got a touchdown, but he made 3 critical errors that cost the 49ers, not the 49ers, the Rams, a big division win when they were trying to come back in this one, but in the end, they just made one too many errors. So to wrap things up, to wrap up this game, for the LA Rams, they beat themselves one too many times in this one. It happened in the first half when the offense was out of sync. They were out of sorts, and the defense just couldn't find answers to shut down Kendrick Bourne, Christian McCaffrey, and they couldn't. They pressured Mac Jones, but they couldn't completely take him down. It just led to another mistake. And towards the end of the game, especially at that time where they need to score touchdowns, not field goals, there was always a mistake, especially from Kyren Williams, which essentially killed their hopes of winning it. But as we go along the way, they still have a strong core with Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams. They still have a good offensive line. Their defensive front is still good. So they still have a good core. They just need to execute better. So they'll still be chasing the 49ers, even with now that they're in a division deficit of 0-1. I mean, they could be in a worse situation like the Arizona Cardinals, where they're 0-2 in the division, but they'll still be chasing the 49ers because it's still relatively early in the season. They're only a quarter in the season. For my San Francisco 49ers, this is probably the biggest win by far this season, because in contrast to the Saints game, they were more severely undermanned in this one, and they were on a very short week. And they went into LA, gutted out an improbable win where they were severe underdogs. They were like a +8 or 9 underdogs, like in betting. I mean, I don't even bet, but like when you, I can still understand like the betting shit, and like when you're a +8, that's then you know that you're a massive underdog. So yeah, they went into LA and yeah, they gutted out an improbable win against one of their division rivals. And yeah, it's early regular season, but still, that's a win that could hopefully inspire confidence and inspire hope in this team. Mac Jones played a strong game, both physically and literally, because he kept getting beat up in this game, and people were getting concerned that like especially with his leg injury, like I thought he's gonna leave the game, and then we have to deal with this third stringer that probably would have ended up leading to lose this game. And no disrespect to the third stringer, but you haven't seen action from him yet. But he toughed it out. Like mad props, and I gotta give respect to Mac Jones, man. After him being a meme for the last couple of years in New England, dude's got guts. I'll give him that. I mean, I gotta say, this was a very well respected performance from Mac Jones. And then this was a great team effort all around, just to overcome all the injuries and just to overcome just about every flaw this team has and turn it into a net positive to go up 3-0 in the division, be 4-1 overall, bouncing back from that really bad performance just a couple of days prior against the Jaguars. And now they have some time to hopefully get some guys back Unfortunately, they did lose some too in this game in time for the trip to Tampa Bay next Sunday. So, yeah, overall, I mean, yeah, bad start to the week. Actually, a very bad start to the week with that Jacksonville game. And then you turn it around days later for I'd say a very good end to the week. Yeah, a complete 180 for my San Francisco 49ers as we wrap up this week in review for the red and gold, and to the fourth edition to the red and gold weekly roundup for my San Francisco 49ers. So yeah, the last thing I'll leave a note on for this fourth edition of the 49ers weekly roundup is that I critique the 49ers when it's justified. Like, it's not hate, it's constructive criticism. And when there's praise to be deserved, I do it. Of course, when it's deserved and earned. And in this game against the Rams, like I said, there's a happy medium to both of those. A little bit more on the praise. So again, critique when it's deserved, praise and props when it's deserved as well. For just about anything, to be honest with you. So yeah, we'll leave it there. Let me know your thoughts on both of those games that we talked about. The week 4 matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then the turnaround game against the LA Rams. The Niners are 4-1 now as we reach the quarterway point, the 1/4 point of the season, and they're officially 3-0 in the NFC West. They got a big lead now that they can't flub up. They cannot flub up now going forward, and hopefully they'll start getting healthier too. So that's going to put a bow on this episode of the Very Cold Lasagna Podcast and the 4th edition of our Red and Gold Weekly Roundup. I've been your host, Dylan Lasagna. This is episode number 291 of this icy yet spicy podcast. Are all your filthy casual takes on the world of sports for you fans out there like you and me. And until the next one, keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge. And until when I see you for the next NFL Week in Review and the next 49ers Weekly Roundup. Peace out.